Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Rollwise podcast. Today, we continue our celebration of Game Masters as it was recently International Game Master Day. And as part of a two-part advice series, we thought we would give some advice to players in hopes that you can make your Game Master's life just a tiny bit easier. So, with that being said, we should probably follow up on one item that we had from last week about clown RPGs. Those of you that made it all the way through the 30-minute episode should know that we're looking for a clown RPG. Now, obviously, we have at least one RPG that we're going to look for, and if we had a chance to. If anybody has any more they want to throw in our direction, we're going to at least spotlight one. But it's called Clown Helsing. And
which is a brilliant title. Regardless of how good the game is or anything, the title is absolutely brilliant.
What's the tagline for that game, Brett?
Combat vampires with rock, paper, scissors, I think. Is that what it was?
Yep. Clowns versus vampires via rock, paper, scissors. So talk about a genius game, because first of all, when I stumbled upon it, I didn't understand what I was looking at, but now I get it. I mean, everything about just the cover, the title. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better clown game to be in existence. So
I agree. That's pretty brilliant.
Unintentional shout out to Planarian or Jake Eldridge. It's on Drive Through RPG under both, so I don't know what Planarian is in this case, but way to have Clown Helsing. That'll go as our tag for this video. So we'll get that Clown Helsing crowd.
We'll get that Clown Helsing fan group.
So with that being said, outside of learning rock, paper, scissors and becoming really good at it to slay vampires, what kind of advice do you guys have for players? Like, I mean, obviously the player kind of gets the easy side of the game, depending on the type of system that you're playing, because you don't have to sit and prep or create stories or characters and all that stuff. But what kind of advice would you give to a player just to at least take a little bit and help that DM out? Who wants to start?
I'll go ahead this time.
Sure.
One of the things, and I've been guilty of this a lot, is try to be in the moment while the game's going on. I know that there are certain systems where sometimes players' turns take a long time, or the party's split and your group isn't getting involved. But try to be involved and try to pay attention, put the phone down. I know that we all have a million distractions and we all like to get our little dopamine hits. I'm like I said, I'm guilty of it. But it makes for better group cohesion. It helps make the whole table, even when it's a virtual table, feel together when you can comment intelligently on what was going on the previous turns and not have to go, so what happened? Even though you were sitting there listening, when it's your turn. I just want to know, not that you're not allowed to forget stuff, but you're making a commitment to be at this thing with a group of people that have also made a commitment to be at the thing. So do your best within reason to try to be present in the moment.
Sure. No, that's good. I mean, honestly, be present. I think, one piece of advice that I had received about this is that, like, you basically engage with the story, right? Is that, because first of all, put your devices away unless it's absolutely necessary. Like in our case, we're always on computers because we do all of our stuff online. So it sometimes is kind of, the distractions are almost built in to an online game that it's so hard to really overcome. But I think if you look at it and you kind of just, if you can take away the distractions and you can just engage in that story and be present for it, you'll have so much more fun. Be curious about what the DM is, put together. Because I mean, like when a DM is telling a story and, you create this like really awesome thing and you're like, oh, this guy is so cool. Here he is. And the players are like, Jan, what was that? Not interested. You're like, oh.
Yeah. It's a better play experience though. I mean, what you'll find if you're paying attention is you're involved more and you have more fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and along those lines, I guess what I would say is, take the type of game that you're playing seriously. Like if you're playing a comedy game, like it's cool to have those comedy characters, but if it's a game where you're kind of playing epic heroes, kind of don't try and make your comedy character necessarily, unless it's some kind of comic relief character that you discuss with the GM. That's would be my thing. Try to avoid peanut gallerying. I'm really bad at that. But try to avoid that. That sort of thing.
But again, every Dragonlance game needs a Kender. Like that's just
it's true
baked into the game.
That's true. So yeah, but I mean, you could be like, I guess what I'm like in a case like that with like that example, like Tasselhoff in the books is very serious. Like he's very serious about everything he does, and sometimes there's comedy around the things that he does because he doesn't understand like stealing is wrong. But like that doesn't mean he's not serious about who he is. And he has his own heroic moments. So I think like what I'm saying is if you're playing your heroic fantasy D&D game, don't make Beavis the Wonder Butthead, the fighter. Like don't make that character that's like, I'm going to be totally contrary to everything that's going on in this game. And that comes along with my second point, which is just remember that the game is kind of about all of the players, not just you.
And if you're constantly on like your phone or something like that, like especially if at the table, like I don't know about you guys, but I've been at some pretty big tables, and 8+ people. It's easy. I don't know anybody that successfully deprogrammed themselves where it's like if it's 8 people at the table, you're in a combat and there's 17 rolls that are happening before you because that's just the initiative order. I mean, it's almost like you just pick up your phone out of habit or something like that.
I would argue that that's not so much a player problem as that's a GM problem. Like the GM is obviously bitten off more than he can chew in a table that big. Like I would never run a game. No way. That's insane to me.
But you may never. But at the same time, if as a player, because that's what this episode is about, is player advice. If you can keep that phone away at least for the session, and if afterwards you decide that was really hard to sit through a session that big, maybe that's a different conversation.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, because truthfully, I mean, I remember one of the games that I really had fun running was a game that was a lot of people. And I mean, I had a lot of people in this game, and I know neither one of you were able to participate, but it was back when I was in college, and we would spend 2 to 3 hours every Wednesday night just playing through this wonderful Game of Thrones-esque, super intrigue, all kinds of stuff and everything like that. And honestly, because of how much like side chats and everything like that I was having, sometimes there wasn't a lot of play for the people that were in the main room, and they had a great time because they would go and they'd have their moment to shine and everything would kind of come together. But it was hard to manage. Don't get me wrong, like there'd be a day where you'd just come to hang out on a Wednesday as opposed to play a game kind of thing, and that could be really tricky. This is before. Go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish.
I was just going to say, and that can be really tricky if you expect a game and other people take up 99% of the time, and you're
for some of us, that might be the only non-family, non-work recreation thing that we have going on that week.
Yeah,
like for some people, and there are sometimes I've been guilty of it. Like it's not just the phone; it's table talk. It's hey, did you see this movie? Hey, did you see this sporting event? Hey, did you see this thing in the news?
Digressions, yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, because we've all sat down and we've done it where we start an hour and a half late,
right?
On a 3-hour session, right? Because we were having fun talking. We're all adults. We made the decision, but it just sort of gets away from us because point A goes to B to C to D to J to Z.
And I do believe we also have an earlier episode where we talk about ways to feed into a game if you're ever struggling with starting the game because of that sort of thing, if you guys want to check that out. But I guess that's another thing that I would say. If you're a particular type of player, like if you're the type of player or if you've had like a bad day and you do want to be kind of in the background, like I would just let the GM know. Like if you're the type of player who's like, I like the game, I like being involved, but I don't necessarily want to be in the spotlight that much. Like tell the GM, because they can work around that. And you definitely don't, if you don't like being in the spotlight, you definitely don't want the GM to try and put that on you and be uncomfortable at the table.
That's a great point.
Yeah, so like just like and you might not know you're that type of player yet, but if you start feeling that way, like let them know. Or if you don't feel like you're getting enough, like if you feel like you're drowned out by another player, mention it, because it is the GM's responsibility to make sure that you get your time at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's true. That's a really tricky one, because sometimes stories can naturally revolve around one or two people more so than the other, and it's always odd to be that, like, that cast member that's like a supporting character. And I think in one of the Fabula Ultima games, like, it was designed around having one main character and like a troop of people. And I remember we talked about that would be like kind of hard, because nobody wants to be the sidekick, or at least not everybody else wants to be the sidekick necessarily. You might find a group that finds that interesting, but
or you can talk to the group beforehand and be like, hey, do you guys want to be like, this is the hero and you're the sidekick, like a Buffy style game. But you got to make that clear though, because like I said, some people aren't going to be,
because they're the chosen one. You are absolutely not.
Exactly. You being the second stringer sometimes might feel a bit uncomfortable, but like I said, as a player, if you like being like, as a GM, sometimes there are times where I like being in the more a passive role in the games, just because like I've done a lot of running games, and like it's kind of nice to not have all the decision making on me. And so sometimes I do take more I do enjoy taking a more passive role in the game. Like, so like, and I think I've talked to you about that before,
yeah, well, you have nights where you're just like, work sucked this week. I'd like to hang out with you guys, but I don't need to necessarily be front and center.
Yeah, exactly. And just say that. And that way, like you can still be there, have fun, contribute to the game, but not necessarily be in the spotlight full on.
And you know what's fine is if you find that you get recharged halfway through, you can always come out of the shell. You don't have to.
You can always butt in.
Yeah, you can always butt in.
Communicating and setting expectations really aren't necessarily bad things.
Yeah, you always can.
They should be positive.
You always can come back in the game and say, I'm done cleaning the air scrubbers. I'm coming up to be involved in things.
We will be talking about air scrubbers soon on one of our episodes.
We will be.
I know we've alluded to this game, but we've been having such a blast with Aliens Charity of the Gods. Like, as you can see, it's right over there. Oh my God, it's so much fun. I love this.
Now you actually got to put that in.
Yeah, I feel like I've needed to insert this into more than one conversation, because I'm subconsciously trying to get everybody to play this scenario, because it has been so awesome.
It is. It's very well written, and it's, if you like Alien, if you like Alien players out there, make your GM run it.
And it's gone surprisingly smooth, given that we oftentimes have various members of the party in different parts of the ship, so not knowing what's going on, but like people have been okay shifting right back into gear when we all get back together again. I think that's been neat.
It's been super fun. So
that is true. That is the challenge of some games, where one of the things that's interesting from a player perspective, and this kind of falls in player advice, is, so one of the things that's been happening in this game is occasionally we go off with just the GM, and just paying attention and integrating back, like getting right back into it, like when they come back, and not having that another additional like half hour of table talk, like it's been pretty interesting. So
yeah, no, actually I've been surprised, because based on my experience, it feels like you guys have kind of just stayed in character and kind of like plotted machinations behind my back, which is fine. Good luck.
Yeah, which most we have.
Yeah, so cool. So that was a good piece of advice, Jeff. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was.
We meandered through a few things, and I think
it covers it. I understand it was pretty broad.
Yeah, be present is, but it's an important one, because like you said, like multiple things happen when you're not being present. Like, you slow down the game because you have to ask other questions. You can make the GM feel like you're just not interested in their game, which we all know as people that run games. If you start feeling like people aren't interested, you becoming interested in that eventually will kill the game. The other players may feel like they're not being heard. In the social thing that we're doing, like there's a lot of, it causes a lot of problems. You should just not.
It's a social game. Be social.
Yeah. Exactly.
So good. So Brent, what about you? What advice would you give to players to make their lives easier?
Try GMing. No. I do suggest that as a serious player advice. because you're always going to find a game where you want to play in it, but unfortunately, you're probably going to have to run it if you want to play it. That's what I always tell people. But actual player advice, I mean, it's sort of the same thing. Just well, like I said before, just if you kind of figure out what type of player you are and what you want out of role playing, like if you want to hang out and be kind of in the background and roll dice, like cool, be that player. Just make sure that the game master, the person running the game, is aware of it, because if you're not comfortable with something, you definitely don't want to be thrust into a situation where you're like that. Like the table is a safe space, and that's what I tell as a GM or player advice. Just remember, when you're playing with your friends, it's or anybody, new people too, it's a safe space, so people should feel comfortable playing their character how they want, or doing what they want. So yeah.
Oh, definitely. So I have one piece of advice, but it has 3 tiers,
3 components.
Wow.
It's got, so I'm gonna hit you right now with the entry level stuff. And this is going to seem so easy, but it's actually really important. And I think as a player, this is a great start, is that it's learn your character sheet. That is tier 1. I mean, honestly, I don't know how to because we've talked before that if me as the DM say, I need you guys to also learn the rules so that we can have a fun, fast-paced play session. Because honestly, when everybody knows the rules and everybody's able to participate, and there's not like a lot of jockeying about understanding how the game friggin' works, then the game is so much more fun, because the story doesn't have these artificial roadblocks that you just have to learn, like halt everything into play. But starting with your character sheet, I think any player that wants to be a serious player in a game, start with learning your character sheet. What can your character do? What did you do to make them interesting into this? And of course, how do the rules impact you? Like, what are your saves? What are your things? Brent,
I think there's a sub tier to this, which is, as a player, bring your character sheet.
Oh,
make
Jesus.
sure you have it.
So I don't even include the sub tier, because if you're not bringing your character sheet, I'm not sure what's going on here. I mean,
I've had games where people didn't bring their character sheet.
Okay, yeah, that's true. You could go
a
lower tier is to make sure you even bring it. But I'm saying learn your character sheet, master the in and outs of the, what it does, what do the numbers mean, and all that stuff. At least so that, if you're interacting with stuff, you at least know compartmentally what your character can and can't do. Now, tier 2 is obviously learn all of your party members' character sheets, like what can their characters do. Tier 3 is learn the fucking rules.
And my callback to GM advice last week would be, don't expect your players to do homework. So
I mean, but honestly, I don't feel like learning your own character sheet is too much homework, because it's really, how do I play my character the best that can be played? So that's
and I think you can do that pretty easily in a session 0, where you all fill out the character sheet together and you can kind of go over the important parts. So
yeah, and I think that's a great starting place for people to just at least get introduced to the game, because one thing we've learned with D&D 4th edition is that there are a lot of rules. And as a player, like, if somebody told me to learn just 4th edition, I would pick up the book, I would start reading it, but go, oh, this is kind of interesting. I'd get a little farther and I'd go blank.
That's a lot of information. Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's literally one section, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but there's like one session where it's like, how do you attack? And then they have another section that tells you how to hit. So when you attack, it doesn't even tell you in the section that you need to hit a number or greater than, like equal to or greater than. They don't tell you that till another section. And I was like, what assholes? Like, I mean, come on. It's like, because it's like, do you need to beat it or do you need to meet it? Those are
I think I like to think that I understand how they tried to organize the book, but when you're reading it, and especially when you're using it, it feels really inefficient because it's like it defines things, and then it's like, see for more information on this, see page 473 for information on this, see page 292, and it's like I get how that happens, but it's a physical book, not Wikipedia. I'm not opening a new tab.
It's the Shadowrun 2nd edition problem, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna look up firearms. Okay, I found firearms. Firearms refers to page 253. Okay, I'm gonna go to page 253. 253 refers to page 89. Okay, I'm going to go back to 89. Okay, that refers to page 105, and then you just throw the book.
Yeah. So, I mean,
yeah.
so like that, I don't expect people to like, because on your first session, like you're excited as a DM. Now, as a DM, unfortunately, you just have to learn the fucking rules. That just, you have to start at tier 3.
I guess that's the real advice is
But-
your DM's going to put in a lot of work.
Yeah.
So the
A lot of
minimum that you could do to help out is just kind of be aware of where to look on your character sheet.
They're going to put in dozens of hours, and you can put in an hour.
Yeah, if that. I mean,
Or
you
an
could
hour
research
a week outside of the game time.
Yeah, just to know what you are, and it's how you build up your own system mastery, so that if you ultimately eventually want to DM yourself, it prepares you better to do it yourself. But that's what I would say is learn your character sheet.
That is good advice,
because honestly, it feels like that's just the basis for any player, and it is not hard, especially when you have like simpler games like Monster of the Week. If you learn your character sheet, you are.
And if you've ever played in the game that your GM says he's running, if it's a pre-published module, tell him. Yeah, that's my other advice.
I'm going to look behind this bookcase. What do you mean? Well, there's a key behind this picture to open the bookcase. How do you know that? I just had a feeling.
Yeah, is this one of those silly things where there's a safe behind the picture?
I can tell
the combination
that the walls weren't the right proportion as we were walking through the hallway.
It would be so silly if his combination was 6275.
Exactly.
It's not even like the space
It's
balls.
not.
Like
Are you
1,
sure you don't
2,
want to read
3?
that passage again? I'm pretty sure it's 6,275.
No, and then because then the GM's going, no, it's not there, and you're like, are you sure?
I don't know. You should check again. Can you read that module, page 47?
At least mention it, and if you're not willing to suspend your disbelief,
Right, just avoid being too meta, I guess is what I would say. Like,
yeah,
it's not. We've all done it.
We've all done it, and it's not
fun.
always. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to avoid, and sometimes you do it on accident, where like you get information throughout the course of the game that your character's not supposed to know about, and you of course respond to it in a way. So
and it may be hard not to.
Just try not to.
I mean, you shared that one comic that was pretty funny about the thing where the DM was telling the story about the guy, and he's like, "You see a copy of yourself."
Oh yeah,
and then the barbarian is like, "I run to his room." Why would you run to his room?
I'm afraid he's scared of the lightning or something like that. Yeah, and he's like, "Okay." Yeah,
and then like basically the guy,
and then the GM passes the guy a note, and the barbarian throws the guy out the window, and the note said, "It was a dream. If he throws you out the window, your character's dead." So be ready for punishment. I guess there's the thing is be ready for reprisals sometimes if you metagame too much.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I can't say every DM would do that, but that was pretty funny that you shared that one. I really liked it.
Sometimes it can happen, like if it seems to happen a lot with specific players. Like I can see people doing that.
Sure. Yeah, because that's the metagame knowledge that and sometimes that's why it's nice to like pull players aside, so there's a sense of tension and a lack of understanding of what's going on. And it's real easy when you're on Discord, because then you can just go into a separate room, come back, and then it's up to that player if they want to share their experience. And
and some players you can just expect it.
Yeah,
to just spew the information back at the other players.
It's true, and it's very helpful when they do that for the other players.
It's true.
But yeah, so that's it. So I mean, I don't have any. I mean, there's lots of player advice that you can give, but I think short is sweet sometimes.
Yeah, we might have more in the future.
Oh, go ahead, Brent.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm just being funny. The thing we're not supposed to do. Like I'm surprised neither one of you said get professional voice acting lessons.
Oh fuck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
be yourself. If you want to give your character a voice and you're comfortable doing it, go ahead and do it. But you don't have to. It looks really cool on YouTube, but you don't have to.
If other people hate it, you might not want to do it the entire time. Because I know people who try to do voices, and like the high pitched screech that they chose to use as their character voice was absolutely unbearable.
Come on, Brent. I only played the Banshee that one time.
Basically, you talk like what are those, the Sketis from Last Crystal the entire time?
Yeah, exactly. Can you stop doing the voice? My ears are bleeding, please.
So you can do your real point now.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say we might do more of these episodes and offer some more players' advice if anybody's interested.
Yeah. Or what was that? Is that Dear Abby was the write-in column for the
yes,
thing?
Dear Abby was the advice column. Is that what we're doing now? Advice column.
If you want to send off and have us give you terrible or maybe good advice, it really just depends on what you're asking.
The only thing I will guarantee about any advice that we give you is it'll probably be kind of funny.
So Jeff, if they want to ask us for their advice, or if they just want to have a conversation with us, how do they do that?
Yeah, if you want to get a sarcastic reply to your sincere question, you can find us on Facebook, Threads, Twitter, and YouTube. We are at Rollwise. Or you can email us, rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
In my defense, I do try and give as many sincere answers.
Brent
as
is
I
very
can.
sincere.
I struggle with sarcasm in text. So listen for your sarcastic reply on the episode after you post your question. In all seriousness, thank you everybody for joining us. We do appreciate you always. Please give us a like, a subscribe, and hit us up in the comments if you have a comment to make. And as always, roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks.